Hello everybody and welcome to another video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be breaking down the big picture market cycles, and I'm going to be breaking down multiple different altcoins, different bottom formations that they're creating, and how many of these bottom formations are exactly the same accumulation patterns we have seen in years past. This is going to lead us to one of the biggest bull runs that we have ever seen. I'm very confident in saying that, which is why I've been preparing beforehand, accumulating specific altcoins, taking a look at different crypto cycles, and for today's video, I'm going to break down exactly how to go about profiting off it moving forward from here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are. Right off the bat, we're going to start off with the total market cap. We're going to go into some of the shorter time frames, and then I'm going to break down all of these different crypto cycles, why they're important, why it matters moving forward into our next cycle, and most importantly, how to go about profiting off of these. Now, many people are taken off guard by this move to the upside. However, I've been accumulating because of the fact I don't necessarily care if we get one more final drop in the cycle. You guys know that I'm a much bigger believer in the 4-year cycles, and with our 4-year cycles flashing a buy signal, I don't care much else about anything besides that point. So I'm simply going to be investing based off of time. I've already been investing inside of this entire accumulation, and now that we're starting to see a positive reaction out of the lows of this accumulation, it's looking more and more likely as if the bottom is really in. Now guys, what we've been talking about and what I've been trying to share with you for a long period of time now is this universal bottom formation that happens every single bear market that I've been in since 2016. Bitcoin first created this pattern back in 2015 and 2016. Back in our last bear market from 2019 to 2020, many altcoins created this same pattern, and I'm literally seeing the exact same pattern being created inside of this bear market with other altcoins as well. Now guys, what we see after the bottom of capitulation, we see our first rally back up. This creates a resistance, we correct back down, and we actually build a support level right in between the range lows and the range highs. We're just kind of in between the middle point of that. Eventually, we make one more rally up into resistance. Now, what you're going to notice with this pattern is sometimes this rally will come all the way back up and retest the range highs. Sometimes it can even peak slightly above. But in some situations, we also get more lackluster moves, and it doesn't come all the way back up. And that was the case. And that was the case inside of this bear market. We didn't see quite the same rally to the upside to come all the way back up to the range highs, but nonetheless, it still created this same pattern. Eventually, what this leads to is our final capitulation, and this is really the very bottom point of this accumulation. And that's, in my opinion, why we're actually seeing such a positive reaction from the bulls right now. It has everything to do with the fact that this is just the same exact bottom formation that has played out in prior cycles. Now, one of the big things that I like to compare it to when it comes time to look at this pattern is the 2015 Bitcoin bottom formation. I always bring this up because it's the most accurate form that this exists in, because with altcoins you're going to get a little bit of a variance. Sometimes this high can be a little bit higher, sometimes it can be a little bit lower, but this is the pattern that I'm talking about. Capitulation, rally up into the range highs, bottom in the midpoint between the range highs and the range lows, rally back up to retest the range highs, bull trap, reject all the way back down, and then we bear trap at support. And this is literally what creates the bottom formation. If you guys are going to notice here, if we come back to the total market cap, notice how this entire sideways accumulation that we've been in looks pretty much identical to what we saw here after Bitcoin capitulated in 2015, and then that led us to our first breakout and flipping this range right here, right? And that was a reversal of our entire trend. That led us into that 2017 bull cycle, right? I like to bring this up because I see this pattern being repeated so many different times inside of our cycle, and I still see the same people missing out on it, having the opportunity of accumulating at these range lows and just simply not being willing to do so in fear of the potential of one more final low. I don't care about one final low. We know our 4-year cycle time frames are flashing by, and that's all I really care about. And so now let's get into the altcoins that are creating multiple different bottom formations that actually resemble this one right here, and also new bottom formations that are equally as important to understand. Now, first things first, guys, I want to talk to you guys about Chainlink, because Chainlink is creating a variance of this exact same bottom formation, and I think it's important that we actually analyze it. Now, in the same sort of ways, this is what we're going to be looking at: a range low, and we're also going to be looking at a range high. This one is slightly different and it's not quite as symmetrical, especially not when we're comparing it to the Bitcoin bottom formation right here. But nonetheless, it's the same emotions, it's the same accumulation, and I'm going to break it down for you right here. So we get our range low, that's capitulation. We rally up into resistance. We come back down and consolidate in between the midpoint of the highs and the range lows. This leads us to one more attempt at a breakout, bull trap, and then this takes us to our final capitulation and the retest of our range lows. It's the same bottom formation. The only difference is this one is just a little bit more choppy. It doesn't look quite as symmetrical, but when we break it down in a way that's easy to understand, you guys can get what I'm pointing at. It's the same bottom formation that continues to develop over time. And so now that we've retested these range lows, there's a big point inside of my trading plan, aside from the 4-year cycles, it's telling me that the markets are much more bullish than they are bearish. And if I'm wrong on that, I'm willing to take the potential of one more final drop, just simply because I don't really care that much about it. If we get one more final drop, I've got a little bit of cash on the sidelines that I will deploy on that drop. But if we don't get it, I'm not going to be the guy that completely misses out on this opportunity of accumulating at the range lows. Because guys, look at this. We have literally been, I'm going to start from over here in May, we've been inside of this range for, 250 days approximately. That's a lengthy period of time. And in my opinion, it's most likely accumulation more than it is so much distribution and reaccumulation for the bears before we actually get one more final sell-off. That's just what I'm leaning to. And also with our 4-year cycle timeframes flashing a buy, I think that it lines up much more accordingly that this is ultimately going to end up being an accumulation pattern. That's what it looks like to me, and that's the way that I'm trading it. Now, another prime example of this, it has a little bit more variance to it, but it's still the same pattern. And this is kind of what I meant when I talked about how you can get some variances inside of this pattern, but nonetheless, it's still the same sort of thing. In Sushi Swap, we got our capitulation, rallied up into resistance, corrected back down to the midpoint of the range, and then this one actually made a higher high above our resistance, but it just barely peaked above, and then that was ultimately a bull trap before coming back down and retesting our range lows once again. So once again, guys, in the same way that Chainlink kind of played out, I think that this is playing out in a similar way. The only difference is we're about 50 days less of an accumulation, but over here at the bottom of our May capitulation that we saw, at that point, it's still inside of this range, so you can really just draw out the same time frames. Nonetheless, guys, what we're looking at here is a massive ABC correction based off of Elliott wave theory. Big ABC all the way back down. What we're looking at as far as percent loss from the all-time highs to the lows, 96%. Typical with what you'd see inside of an altcoin correction, especially an altcoin being Sushi Swap that had a lot going against it inside of its cycle. But nonetheless, guys, what we're focusing on is the accumulation. The accumulation is where you have the best opportunity of getting in at the market, yet almost everybody refuses to buy and accumulate during these periods. And so I was hoping by sharing with you guys some bottom formations, how they've played out in years past, it will give you an idea of what to be expected moving forward. Because here's the thing, guys. Let's assume that this actually is a bottom formation like I think it is. We flip the range highs right here. In my opinion, we're really just going to teleport straight to about $5 for Sushi Swap. And what we're looking at inside of the total market cap, if we come to a little bit of a bigger time frame, what we're going to be looking at is basically a move back up to the mid-range point. And in my opinion, that's basically going to be here for the total market cap. And it's pretty much the mean accumulation that we were in, right? We bottomed here at 30K. We chopped around to this level, and then when we kind of came back down before our major capitulation that we saw leading into our summer collapse, we actually saw us kind of bounce around this level. So in my opinion, where our midpoint is pretty much in between these 2 points right here. I'd say anywhere from 1.6 trillion all the way down here to about 1.3 trillion. And when we actually break out of this reaccumulation, it might take a little while, but in my opinion, we're going to go pretty much straight in between these 2 points. Whether it's here that we stop, come back down, and then go up higher, or whether we rally all the way back up, catch a lot of people off guard, rallying upwards of 1.6 trillion. Either way, guys, what we see after the bear market and the beginning of the new bull trend is we revert back to the mean. And that's one of the big things I like to draw and compare with you guys. And it helps for the average person, I should say, just to be able to kind of see how they've played out in years past. Notice how every single cycle, we have our bear market, we get our first breakout into the new bull trend, and we pretty much are reverting to the mid-range point of our cycle, right? We have the low here, we have the high here, we revert back to the mean, which is just the middle point of the range. Same thing happened here inside of this bear market. Maybe a little bit less volatile, but nonetheless, if we draw the mid-range point from the high midpoint to the low midpoint here, we see that that's exactly where the market reverts to. And that was our resistance throughout, 150 days worth of reaccumulation for the beginning of new Bitcoin's trend in 2016. That was when I first bought my first Bitcoin. And so I had the opportunity of getting in early, writing out these cycles, and being able to see how these cycles play out. The big difference here is our mid-range point inside of our 2018 cycle was here at about 6K, and we actually overextended from that point. We rallied all the way back up to 14K, which was an extension of the 618 Fibonacci, and it was actually higher than that mid-range point. Our first two cycles reverted straight back to the mean. That was 2011, that was 2015, and then inside of our 2019 reaccumulation, we actually overextended and about doubled the mid-range point. And so anything can happen inside of these cycles. Obviously, we could even see a point where we don't hit the mid-range point, but in my opinion, I don't think that that's going to be the likely scenario. And our mid-range point as far as Bitcoin goes is 30K. That's where I believe that we're going to revert to our mean. And so let's assume that we bottom here. We would expect a rally back up to 30K. Could even see it extend upwards of 40K. And keep in mind, guys, that it could go higher than that. We really have no idea. It's not like there's a golden rule that Bitcoin has to go to this exact level. And so there's going to be people in the comments that are saying, oh, well, just because we've reverted to the mean in all the cycles doesn't mean that we're going to this time. And while that is true, there really isn't an important level until about 30K for Bitcoin. And I find it very likely that that is where the market will ultimately rally up to, and potentially even higher. I mean, if we make a move to the 618, we're looking at a move upwards of $50,000 and $60,000, or pretty much to the top of this lower high that we made before our major capitulation that we experienced, right? And so if that's going to be the case again, based off of prior cycles, we're looking at a big move that's going to come out of this reaccumulation. And so while so many people are so focused on the potential of this final sell-off taking place, I'm more focused on the potential of what we make inside of the new bull trend, right? What we're looking at across the board, this one specifically, is the same bottom formation that I personally made an immense amount of money off of investing into our last bear market. And this cycle is a little bit different, meaning that it's only half as much time that we spent inside of this pattern versus if we come over here and look at, Ethereum or something. Ethereum spent a significant period of time inside of this pattern, but it's the same universal pattern that continues to develop. This one just took, 600 or 700 days to get to that point. I think it was actually 450 days. Let me actually check the exact time frames. So yeah, we're looking at about 550 days inside of this pattern before we led to this final, major bull run. Nonetheless, what we're seeing is the same pattern. It's just taking half as much time to develop. And I think that this is the accumulation phase before we revert back upwards of the mean. And then that's going to lead us into this reaccumulation phase. We could drop a little bit lower here, but nonetheless, I'm expecting that 2023 is going to be our first leg up into the new bull trend. We'll probably rally upwards here into, May and into the summer time frames, I would say. And then from around May, June, something like that, we'll most likely see another correction that leads us to us retesting this 30K level, or us retesting pretty much the point right before our FTX collapse. And then that's going to take us into, basically a bigger expanse to the upside. Similar to kind of what we experienced here in the last cycle. Nonetheless, every single reaccumulation is going to look a little bit different, but this is pretty much the rule of thumb. Out of accumulation, we rally up. We have some type of correction back down. Inside of our last cycle, we ended up having this COVID capitulation that took us even a little bit lower. And so I don't know exactly how our reaccumulation will look, but what I am confident in saying is that we will revert back to the mean somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000, potentially higher. I'm not going to try and say that, but that's why I say that it's better off preparing and reaccumulating down here at the range lows than you are, watching the market take off, potentially extending higher than you expect, like what we saw over here out of our 2019 bottom. then you don't want to be the guy that watches the market take off. You're seeing altcoins leaving their reaccumulation phases, going up, 2, 3, 4, 5x and more. And then you have to be, sitting there just holding on your hands, not being the person that FOMO buys into the top. That's a really hard thing to do. And while there is going to be some that are just simply going to wait around until we get this type of correction and you have the patience to do that, more power to you, wait for confirmation, whatever your trading plan is. But for me, I don't have a problem accumulating at these levels because my 4-year cycle timeframes are flashing. So when we're looking at these, we're looking at multiple of the same sort of reaccumulation patterns. Cardano was a perfect example of this same pattern. The difference was it took much longer inside of this reaccumulation pattern, but it's the same emotions every single time. Now, what we see also is different sort of reaccumulation patterns. They're not going to follow the same 2015 Bitcoin bottom, but that's why I like to share with you guys other forms of analysis that perfectly showcase pretty much the emotions that are dictated inside of the market. I posted this chart a while ago, and a lot of people made fun of this chart when I first posted it. And if you guys look at what Phantom's doing today, we flipped this resistance, and now we're actually getting continuation from that point. But nonetheless, what we're seeing is the same emotions, the same humans that are trading these cycles, and it's creating the same emotional psychology and the same patterns at that. We see the same thing. We can go through and analyze all of the emotions all the way through from the bull cycle to the bear cycle. And what was obvious to me when I was watching Phantom was how this bottom formation just looked identical to many of the prior bottom formations that I've seen. Even though it's not quite the same as, this pattern so much, it still is. It still resembles a lot of the same similarities. Nonetheless, what it was looking like to me was just a perfect example of capitulation, anger, and depression. Capitulation, anger, depression. And from that point, we've only seen upside and continuation. And so I believe that this is where we're at inside of this cycle. We're at the bottom formation. Many altcoins have already bottomed. Bitcoin's most likely bottomed. And that's why I made my video just the other day stating that the bottom is in. It's because I am very much leaning towards the bottom being in. Yes, I have cash on the sidelines just in case I'm wrong on that scenario. It doesn't really matter though, because I'm really focusing in on the fact that I'm accumulating down here at these low points. And so if what we're getting ready for is this disbelief rally, we're going to be looking at a reversion. We're going to be looking at a reversion back up to this mean, where this bottomed, where this bottomed, where this bottomed before a capitulation. Most likely we rally back up in between this point. That's going to be a big move off the lows, and I can guarantee that the people that were wanting to accumulate down here that miss out and watch the market expand like that most likely are going to end up buying the top, or they're just going to be very angry and upset, and they're going to miss out on all of the profit to be made in 2023, because most likely 2023 is just a year where we bounce back up into the new bull cycle and then we correct back down. 2024 most likely is where we're going to see real expansion, much more along the lines of this type of blow off top type of move, right? And so this is a good opportunity of being able to make a good amount of profit inside of this calendar year, because we're most likely only going to get one leg up to be able to buy. I can't say exactly what that leg up is going to look like, but I've made many different points on what I think it could play out, and so that's how I'm basically going to be trading it. Now guys, another example that I wanted to bring up here is many of the OG altcoins from, all the way back before that 2017 bull run. The altcoins that performed the best in 2017 had lackluster performances in our most recent bull run. Because of that, mostly everybody is writing off the potential of these OG altcoins from prior to 2017 cycles. They don't think they're going to do good at all. Many people have already sold them. Many people have already moved on to new altcoins, the new shiny project that everybody wants to talk about. And because of that, I believe that many people are going to miss out on an even bigger opportunity being some of these older altcoins. Just because many of the older altcoins didn't make a new all-time high doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to perform good in newer cycles. And the reason I say that is because if we look over here with XRP, and this is the case for a number of these different charts, remember here, what I was talking to you guys about for a long time was our total altcoin market cap. Let's go right here and take a look. Remember how I've been drawing this exact same bottom formation here? How I've been stating that what our accumulation looks like is almost identical to what we saw right before our 2017 bull run. I still very much believe that that's the case. And the reason I've been drawing this for you guys is because many altcoins are actually creating those exact same bottom formations. And this is kind of what I mean. Inside of XRP, what we've seen is the exact same reaccumulation patterns. The only difference is it's just taking more time to create that exact same pattern. And that's kind of what I've been talking to you guys about for a while now. This bear cycle was the same as our 2018 all the way down to 2020, the beginning of 2020. It was the same as that cycle. This lower high that we saw in 2014 was the same as the lower high that we saw leading up into 2020 and 2021. And then this ABC correction back down to retest the range lows is the same thing as our bear market that we've been in for the last year, right? And so where I believe that we're at right now is we're inside of this move where XRP pretty much just went sideways for a year, and then that led us into that 2017 expanse. Now, I'm not saying that XRP is just going to go like this for the whole year, because it's most likely going to be a little bit different than what we experienced here. I wouldn't be surprised if we rallied back up to here, corrected back down, kind of did something like this, and then went upwards into our next cycle. It's always going to be a little bit different, but what we're looking at, guys, is literally the same patterns that are being developed. The only difference here is it's taking more time to create the exact same sort of expanse that we saw in 2017. And when I come over here and look at the total altcoin market cap, and it looks just like that first leg up that we made, breaking out of new all-time highs, and then that expanse that we saw in 2017, it looks identical to what we saw. It's the same emotions, it's the same patterns that are being accumulated in here, being created, I should say, through accumulation. And that's why I'm very confident in saying that our next cycle very easily could be one of the biggest that we've ever seen, if not the biggest. ROI will be diminished in Bitcoin. We see an obvious pattern with that. The more money that goes into a market, the more liquidity it has, the less volatility it has, and simply speaking, the ROI does get diminished. And so while we won't see, the same ROI that we saw for XRP when it went from, 5 cents or less than 5 cents, half a cent, all the way up here to $3.70, we're not going to see a 700x return. But nonetheless, guys, if we rally upwards of, 20 bucks, let's just say, that's 50x. It's going to be significantly diminished versus prior cycles, but I can guarantee you that anybody here watching this video is more than happy with a 50x return. That was some of my better performing altcoins in the last cycle. I made a 40x off of Phantom. I made it was a 20x that I first took profits on Luna, and then I sold the majority of my portfolio at 40x and just held what I had left until all the way to the collapse. I ended up just actually missing out on all of that profit left over, because when it collapsed, I lost all my money in Luna, I should say. But nonetheless, guys, many of my best performing investments in the last cycle, I took profits at 20, 30, 40, and 50x. And so it's hard to be able to hold to 1000x because we just have no idea how high they're going to go. But that's why I say that if we get in here at the bottom point, it gives us a much better ability to be able to hold on to those big gainers, because the thing is, guys, most people sell too early. That's why I like to stick to time frames, because with time frames, it sets me up for a much better entry and exit point where I can't predict how volatile things are going to get to the upside or the downside. What I do know is Bitcoin tops and bottoms based off of these 4-year cycles. And so if we follow them, we might not know or nail the exact top, and that shouldn't be our focus, but capturing the majority of the move. Now, guys, I just want to be preparing you for the potential that this next cycle is going to be much bigger than people expect. Whereas I was calling for XRP to go to $28 inside of our most recent move, it was simply just too premature. I was naive in assuming that this period of time was enough accumulation, and I don't believe that was the case. I believe that this entire leg up and leg down, and throughout 2023 of this calendar year, will be us creating this exact same reaccumulation before our spring move into that 2017 type expanse. I believe that that is what the markets are creating, and when we come over here and look at the total altcoin market cap, it's really hard to be able to deny just how identical this pattern is in each cycle. The big difference here is just the amount of time that it's taking to create those same expanses. So like I said, guys, ROI will be diminished. We shouldn't expect to see OG altcoins that are sitting at multi-billions of dollars in market cap to do a 1000x move. It's just not going to be happening. And I hate to burst your bubble, but nonetheless, a 40, a 20, a 30, a 40, or a 50x move is so big that it does not matter. As long as we're taking profits, we have a ton of money that we can reinvest back into the next bear market, and that should be our big focus here. Now, guys, another big cycle that I want to talk to you guys about is actually XMR. XMR has performed one of the better performing assets throughout our bear market. It didn't have quite as bad of a bear market all the way back down. Even though this is an 80% correction, it's not really that big of a correction compared to many of the other markets that we see. Majority of the markets that corrected 90+% were ones inside of their first cycle. So they had a lot of people that were selling, causing the market to go down. They also had a much bigger bull run. So that with bigger bull run, with more ROI to the upside, equals a bigger bear market to the downside. What goes up must come down type of thing. But what I'm seeing here across the board on all these altcoins from 2017 that performed so well, XMR is one that's not going to just it's not just going to stop performing well, in my opinion. There's a lot of people that use XMR. You got to think about XMR being the big currency for the dark net markets, all of the black market websites for buying, selling drugs and things like that. XMR is the token that they're using, and you got to think that there's a significant amount of volume being traded inside of the drug trade. And with XMR being completely anonymous, it really does bring sort of a reason for why people are actually accumulating it. But nonetheless, guys, aside from any sort of fundamental reason, what we're looking at with XMR is exactly the same patterns that we've seen in many prior cycles. The only difference here is this disbelief rally technically made a new all-time high, but our bear market backed down, and the retest of this low point of our accumulation, this entire leg up is literally just the beginning stages before we have a much bigger expanse. And so when I say this pattern, what we're literally looking at is just our last cycle was just a leg up into new all-time highs, preparing for a much bigger liftoff into this coming cycle that we're in right now. And when we see all of these OG altcoins that didn't perform well, or were at least more lackluster than I experienced or expected and many others expected, what we're seeing here, in my opinion, is the disbelief phase. Everybody's riding off these OG altcoins. They've already focused their bets on to new altcoins, new cycle altcoins, and while that is also my focus as well because they perform the best, I'm not riding off how well that these are going to do. And I'm fully expecting that these OG altcoins are going to catch a lot of people off guard. And many people that had an opportunity of getting into a little bit more of a safer bet, they're not looking at it as a safer bet because it didn't have a massive bull run in our last cycle. But that's exactly why this is the disbelief phase. Notice here how it says this is a sucker's rally. It's because nobody actually expects the market to keep going up. They view this disbelief phase as exactly what it says, disbelief. They are in disbelief that we will ever see another bull run like 2017. And so while I was wrong in the last cycle, believing that these OG altcoins were going to perform massive, they were going to do the same sort of rallies as what we saw in 2017, I was very much wrong about that. But I believe that the only thing that changed is just the length of time to create that same expanse. I'm very confident in saying that our next bull run is going to be a very big one. It's going to rival much more consistently with the type of expanse that we saw in 2017. And that's really why I've been in crypto. I mean, I got in 2016, experienced the entire bull run of 2017, and it was literally massive. It was so much bigger than anything that we saw in our last cycle. But I don't believe that those are over by any means. Yes, the ROI will be diminished. I mean, if XMR decides to, make a massive bull run, and we go all the way up here of like $5,000, that's a huge move, right? That's a massive move. If we come down here and take a look at what the ROI would be if we went to 5,000, that's a 30x move. Nonetheless, it shrinks our entire last cycle, makes it look like a little blip on the radar, just like what we see with prior Bitcoin cycles dating all the way back to 2009. A 30x move, is still significantly smaller than what we saw here with a 1000x move in 2017. But what I'm talking about is the expanse, right? Even though the expanse is going to be the same size as 2017, the ROI will be diminished. It won't be as big. You're not going to make as much money. And that's why I say that I'm personally focused on newer cycles that haven't had any bull runs, because those are always the ones that make the biggest ROI in the cycle. And so that's my focus. That's what I believe that, at the end of the day, you guys should do whatever you want, but that's what my focus is, and this is what basically my trading plan is as well. And so one final thought here. I did want to take a look at one more altcoin before we wrap things up, and that's just Zcash. Because not that I'm holding Zcash or necessarily believe in it or anything, it's just that these are creating disbelief rallies. This is the disbelief phase, right? Where we had a big cycle in 2017, a big bear market back down, And we've been in a reaccumulation period since 2019 all the way leading into this calendar year of 2023. I believe that this entire consolidation is literally just us in the disbelief phase where we make our first higher high. You know, everybody believes that this is a sucker's rally because we had such a big correction all the way back down. Zcash is sitting back at the range lows that we were in from 2018 to 2019, even into 2020. And because of that, everybody is writing them off. Nobody's thinking about any of the altcoins from prior cycles. And what they're creating, in my opinion, is this same pattern before we get that 2017 type liftoff. And so, yes, guys, the ROI is going to be smaller, but I don't think that that should shake you out of being willing to accumulate some of those old altcoins, especially if you're looking for safer picks. At the end of the day, safe is just, you know, an opinion. Nobody really knows what's a safe pick. Safe pick for me would be like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And that's kind of what I would focus on. But don't write off some of these other altcoins, guys. I believe we're going to see a massive cycle, and a 30x is still life-changing money. I mean, you have $1,000, you'd have $31,000 if we did a 30x. That's a big amount of money that you could take. You know, you'd have plenty of money to be able to, you know, invest in new projects, not so much crypto, but other asset classes at that. So anyways, guys, if you found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server, download my free ebook. Links are in the description for that. For the people that actually like to sign up and follow all the trades that I take, I'm posting a lot of different signals inside of my Discord. I've been accumulating a lot of different altcoins as we're inside of this accumulation trend. I believe that the bottom is in, most likely. It's not guaranteed or anything, and it's just my opinion, but I've been preparing for the fact that the bottom is in. So if you guys want to follow some of these new investments that I'm taking, some of the new trades that I'm posting, NFT picks and things of that nature, links are in the description because this is where the generational wealth is to be made. Most people sign up for my Discord and my private group when we're at the top of the cycle, and that's just not the right time to be getting in, unfortunately. And so if you guys really want to be able to make the life-changing wealth and follow some of these good picks that I've been investing into, links are in the description to go ahead and join. Thank you guys so much for the support, and with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.